I think he went in there and thought he was going to roll me over out the park. He's probably overconfident. He did an interview before and he said, I don't check kicks, apparently. Checked almost every one of his kicks. But I made the point of going in there and going, you don't think I can check or I don't check? All right, I'll do it. And I think I checked almost every one of his kicks when we...
Welcome, everyone, to the first episode of the Fighters of Perth podcast. My name's Michael, and with me, I'm very lucky today to have my very first guest, Tyler Hardcastle. Anyone that's been following the Muay Thai scene obviously knows who this guy is. But for anyone that might not know or that's just getting started in the Muay Thai scene, Tyler, just give us a little bit of a rundown of who you are, your fights, and we can go from there.
So obviously my name's Tyler Hardcastle. I'm 27 years old. I've been fighting since I was 15 years old. So in total, I've had 43 professional fights, 30 wins. I've held multiple state and Australian titles, fought all around the world on both One Championship and Raja Damnan World Series. And just really happy to be here and honoured to be your first guest.
Thanks, man. And I really do mean it, man. I'm super grateful to have you on, for you to take your time and do this because I'm like a really big fan. Honestly, whenever you're fighting on a card, I just really recommend people to go and watch because, in my opinion, you've probably got one of the most prettiest, like picture-perfect styles. So I just wanted to tell you that.
Thank you.
Obviously, you've been doing this for quite a few years, as you said. What's your story, man? How did you get started in Muay Thai?
Well, obviously I was born in the United Kingdom in England. I was born in a place called Doncaster. And my dad's always been quite involved in fighting. He was a boxer when he was a kid. And he actually was the one that got me into Muay Thai. He used to do PTs on a Sunday at a gym in Sheffield called the Wicker Camp. I think it's quite a well-known gym in the UK. And I used to just go down with him and just mess around. I never used to take it seriously. Never used to fight or anything like that when I was there. I kind of just went and watched mostly or just messed around. I wanted to wear a pair of Muay Thai shorts just to wear it. You know, it was kind of just a admiring your dad type of thing. He didn't fight or anything. He just did it for a bit of fun. So that's kind of how I first got introduced into Muay Thai. Then obviously we moved to Australia when I was 10 years old. And I was playing football from around 13 to maybe 14 or 12 to 14 years old, something like that. And in the off season, I decided to get back into a bit of Muay Thai, a bit of martial arts, just to keep the fitness up, so it wasn't so hard when we went back into the pre-season again. And I think after the first session of the Muay Thai, going back to it, I don't think I've ever looked back. I never went back to playing football. Never did any of that. I just kind of got stuck into Muay Thai, and I think within the first 6 to 8 months, I started fighting.
Yeah. And how old were you when you did that?
So
when you first started training, getting into when you came back and you did the
probably 14 or 15. Probably 15 because I think it was closer to 16 when I had my first fight, but I was still 15. It was something like that. Yeah. So I was still quite young. So it was quite soon after first starting. To actually fighting. It's kind of just like get straight into it.
Yeah, and that was at Predator Gym?
Yes, it was a Predator with Jack 300. I had my first 2 fights with Jack 300, won both of those fights. And then after that, before he went to Khao he went back to Thailand for a brief period, I think, before he came back, and that was actually when I moved to Riddlers.
Right. Yes. And if you don't mind me asking, what made you want to make the move from Predator to Riddlers?
Well, Jack was obviously running the fight team at the time. He was kind of just running the whole thing, and without him, I'm not sure maybe where I would have progressed, you know. So I'm pretty sure because Jack obviously knew Darren. Darren lived at Sang Morakot when he was in Thailand and when he fought in Thailand. So Jack said, "I'll go there, be a good gym." And someone I was training with at the time, Dina Sokol, who's now a trainer at one of the champion gyms, I think, she was making the switch to Riddlers from when Jack was leaving, so I kind of just followed her there.
Oh, man, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And obviously you were at Riddlers for yonks, right?
About 10 years, I think.
10 years, and obviously did a lot of fights through there. And I wanted us to warm up a little bit more, but I guess one of my questions is, what are you comfortable sharing about your move from Riddlers to, obviously, the pit?
I think sometimes it comes a time in someone's career where they need a move. You know, certain things can happen. I'm not here to badmouth people or talk about anything, but it was definitely time for me to move and time for me to experience something different. And, I think the Thai boxing pit's the perfect place for me to go. I think as soon as I found out Roy was going to take over and start being one of the head trainers, I think that was one of the biggest pulls for me to go, yeah, I want to go there. Our styles are very similar, but he almost mastered the art of kicking. I think if anyone's watched Roy fights, they'll know he's just slick kicker, just perfect, So, it was just like, oh, you know what? I'm doing that. I'm going there. And I've been there a couple of years now as well. So, and I think how many fights I've had out of the pit now? 4, I think.
Yeah, 4.
I think 4. Yeah.
Yeah, man.
So, time goes quick.
It does, man. It does. What would be the biggest differences in the training styles between the pit and Riddler's?
Well, there's not much different. Really, it's like the same. They do the exact same things, but maybe the pit might do more of one thing, and Riddler's might do more of another. So everything's practically the exact same. It just they'll do different things on different days and mix and match certain things, but everything's practically the same.
So they basically will get you to the same.
Yeah, it's all traditional Muay Thai, so they practically train the exact same.
Yeah. So one of your, I think it was your most recent fight against Nilsson.
Yes.
Again, congrats on that fight.
Thank you.
That was really, really cool. And I wanted to ask you, at one point you did this, I think it was like a catch and a turnaround sweep, like you spun around your back and you swept him.
Yeah, maybe. I think so.
You don't remember that?
I think it was at the very start of the fight, was it? Was it at the very start? I'm not sure. Because I did a few, I think. Got no idea.
I was going to say, what do you call that move? Or
I've got no idea. Sometimes I don't even realise what I'm doing half the time. I watch it back and I'm like, all right, fair enough. I kind of just let it flow in there, I think. I think that's probably the best thing to do.
That's kind of
just let it all come to you, I think everyone has their main things that they're good at or they enjoy doing. But when you're in there, you just have to really flow with it. You have to feel what's right for you and just go with it.
Yeah. So there wasn't like a technique that you had drilled the whole fight camp and then it just kind of clicked, or? No,
nothing like that. I think over time of having so many fights, I think it comes to a point where you kind of know all the sweeps, you know what you're doing, and if you got that muscle memory in your mind, some things just come naturally. And I think for me in fight camp, it's all about just my left kicking. We're still trying to add more things into my game. We're trying to maybe box a bit more, do a few more different things, just to add in there as well. But I think my left kick did quite well that night. I think that was probably one of the things. Was probably the thing I threw the most.
It's like you're so good at it that even though your opponents know you're going to throw it, there's nothing they can really do about it.
I kind of feel like that already. And I almost feel like through my career, maybe people, because I'm not exactly the biggest welterweight in terms of muscle and mass size, maybe some people look at me and go, oh, you won't hit that hard. No. And then I hit them and then you can sometimes you can see it in their face straight away. They're like, oh,
got a story.
Yeah.
So the first time, I think, one of the first times I was exposed to you as a fighter, I think it was your fight with Sparrow. Do you remember that one? Yeah. So I was in the change room and he came out and it was just after the fight. I think you've won that fight.
Yeah, I won that fight.
And he's like, I think he was talking to Blair. He's like he was just like, he kicks so damn hard. Like he was like in shock of like, he was just talking about like, man, he kicks so damn hard. And I was just sitting there, I was like, all right, like this guy is a bit of a weapon.
Bit of a kicker, and it's kind of just evolved from there. Yeah, it's just, I don't even know why. I don't think I do anything particularly different. I think for me, whenever I try and throw something, I try and throw it hard. I don't think, you see some fighters, and they might do that. They might try and, I don't know, preserve energy or not throw things so hard or something like that. I just like to just swing it in there.
And how do you find that with like your gas tank? You just find you're so fit, it doesn't really matter?
Yeah, I think I'm just used to it as well. I think I try and control fights as well. I try and set the pace. I try and not gas myself too hard, but as well, I train hard, so I know I can last the 5 rounds if it gets like that anyway. There's no real worries if I'm gonna be tired or anything like that because I train hard, so I know that won't happen anyway. So yeah.
I'm sure you do train hard, man. Like to get to where you obviously all you've accomplished, you don't get there by sitting on your ass.
Yeah, exactly.
How would you best describe your style?
Probably, I like to be a technical fighter. I like to. Everyone likes going in there and watch people throw down and throw hands and big elbows and all these types of things. But I like watching real technical fighters, where everything looks like it's an art, like people are like almost gliding across the ring. I think that's probably best suited to what I think my style is. Obviously, my main weapon is obviously my kicks. It's what I've always done. It's what I'm the best at. It's what I'm most comfortable doing. So I think that probably best describes my style.
And was it like a kind of just an evolution from like just by you training that just kind of developed, or was it an intention like I kind of want to fight like this, I want to train to fight like that?
Yeah, I think it was more of an evolution of doing it. Plus I'm southpaw, so that throws people off already. So many people are probably used to the right kick coming all the time because they're fighting orthodox. As soon as a southpaw comes in, it kind of throws people off. And I think over time of me knowing that's going to happen to people as well, it's been able to evolve my kick even more, where I'm like, let's just make this as hard as it possibly can, because people are going to struggle if I hit them with it enough times. So I think it's just a gradual thing that I've worked over time. Like, I think I've always tried to improve my boxing, and I'm all right at boxing if I want to do it. In a fight, if we get in the clinch, I can clinch. So I've always made sure that I can do everything. I'm like, if a fight where I do something and my leg hurts or I can't kick anymore for whatever reason, I'll be able to box, I'll be able to clinch, I'll be able to do everything. So I've kind of never I'm going to kick and that's all I can do. I can do it across the board if it needs to. So I think it's important to do a bit of everything and know what you're doing. So
you're never kind of stuck in any situation.
No, because obviously in fights, as you know, not everything always goes to plan or how you want it to be. You got to adapt to different styles. You've got to know what your opponent's going to do and then make the best of what you've got. So I think I'm quite good at setting the pace of the fight, setting the tone of the fight, and making it how I want it to be. I think that's probably one of my best traits, that I can actually do that.
Is there or has there ever been a time that you're in the fight and let's say your main weapon's your kick, and either your leg is sore or for whatever reason against the style of your opponent, the way you like to fight's not working, and you've had to adapt like you just said? Has there ever been a fight where you've just completely had to mix it up and change it up?
I think when you start fighting high-level Thais, I think that's when these things start to happen, because obviously they're the masters at the game. So, I think the first time where I was like, my kick's not going to doing a whole lot is when I fought Yod Panamrong on one championship. I was like, this is. I was almost out of my depth in that fight. I was like, far out. What am I doing here? In the clinch, he was just superior. I just felt a difference. As soon as I went in there, I was like, this guy knows what he's doing. You can just feel it when you're in there with someone, And I ended up losing that fight as well. So.
Is that your first one-on-one? Or have you only had one?
I've had 2 fights on one championship. That was my first one. So, that was a bit of an experience in itself as well. Yeah. There's a bit of it's very different to probably anything like normal Muay Thai, so to speak. Especially like the weight cut process is all different. The hydration test you have to do.
Tell me a bit more about that. So how's it different?
So obviously you got to weigh in twice. You got to pass hydration and make weight each time. So I fought at 66 kilos on both of my one championship fights, and I'm usually a 67 kilo fighter. So, you have to cut the weight down and then still be able to pee and pass a test. And obviously going in there, I don't know. I was a bit like, I don't know how I'm going to go with this. But anyway, we cut the weight, and they ended up being able to pee, and they test it. I don't know what they test or what they do. Yeah. Or they put this measuring thing in there, and it comes up with a number. And if the numbers say over, I think 250, you fail hydration because you're too dehydrated. Yeah. And if it's under it, then you pass because you're hydrated.
Did you know this going into it?
I knew this going into it, but we kind of was like, we think we know how to. Because George had fought on one championship just before me, and he did the same thing, but he passed hydration. So we were like, all right, he did it like that. We'll do it. It'll work. And I didn't pass hydration.
So what happened after that?
Well, you have to do another weigh-in, which is on fight day. Yeah. So if you fail one of the hydration tests on either say you fight on the Friday, the Wednesday, pardon me, or the Thursday, you have to weigh in on fight day in the morning at like 9 a.m. or something like that. So
you have to be 66 the day before and then 66 on the day.
So I had to be 66 on the Wednesday, the Thursday,
right,
and the Friday morning. So 3 days at like weighing weight. So like what we did was, after failing the first hydration test and knowing, we've got to weigh in 2 more times now. So what we ended up doing, I don't even know how it works. I don't understand how it works, because I'm like, me at 66 kilos, I am not hydrated.
Yeah.
I'm like a 74, 75 kilo walk around.
Yeah.
So me at 66, I'm like, I don't understand, but all right, fair enough. So after the weigh-in, I ended up drinking as much as I could until I was peeing clear. And then in the morning, waking up again, drinking, making sure I was peeing clear. Then I think I drank a litre and I held my pee, and then I cut weight. So that might put on, it makes no sense. There'll be some other tricks or ways for people that have done it and they've mastered it. But for me, I probably would have done more research in it and maybe looked into it more on how to get around it, or maybe gone, no, I can't do it at 65 or 66. I'm going to have to go up to 70 per se, because I'd be able to do that. Now I've done it, I'd be able to do it 70, no problem.
Yeah.
But the second, for the first fight, the weigh-in on the Thursday and the Friday, I passed hydration because I did that. So obviously I'd cut the weight, I drank it back up again, and I think I got up to, I think it was 70 kilos or 71 just from drinking to make sure I peak clear. And then I cut the weight again back down to 66.
Right. So when you cut the second time, you're more hydrated because you had
I think it's the amount of fluid that's in your bladder more than anything, because I can never understand how I'd be hydrated at 66 kilos when I don't understand that, but I passed anyway. The pee was perfectly clear and I made the weight, and then obviously I did it again on the fight day.
And do you feel like that impacted your performance on the day?
I don't like using excuses, but it's definitely a detriment, because your opponent passes the hydration and weight check on the Wednesday and the Thursday. They get 24 plus hours.
Right.
But they don't have to do it's only if you fail the hydration that you have to weigh in 3 times. If you pass both of them, you only do it twice. So he would have had another 24 hours or whatever it was to refuel or whatever. I think from the 9 a.m. to the point where we had to leave for the venue was maybe at 2 o'clock, was maybe 4 hours.
Right.
I was trying to get, so I think from 66 kilos, I think I walked into the ring at about 68 and a half. I only put on about 2.5 kilos.
Yeah.
And that was when I walked around at about 74. So I think it's a good thing what they're trying to do, but I think the fight day weigh-in and having to do it, I think it takes away the fact that they're trying to make it healthier for the fighters. I think, because if someone's cutting heaps of weight, and they're not heaps of weight, but cutting weight, and then you're making them weigh in on weighing day, and as well having to go through those 2 other days previous of having to cut the weight, make hydration, doing that over 3 numerous days, it takes it out of you. You're definitely knackered by the end of it. Fluctuating up and down weight all the time, it's definitely not easy. And I had to do that for both fights. So
what made you fight at 66? Was that your decision? Or?
Well, I wanted to fight. If there was a 67 kilo division, that I'd be in the 67 kilo division. But I think the way that the one weights work, I think they do it MMA style. So I think it's 61, then 65.8 or something. That's what I was in. And I think it goes up to 70. Then after that, I don't know. I think it's like 76 or something, unless you find like a catch weight or whatever. So I got the contract. I was all excited. I'm going to do this. I can do this. Blah blah blah. Signed it, and in hindsight, I would have looked at it a bit more and gone, I don't think I can. Maybe it'll be, not that I can't do it, but it'd be a struggle getting down to that weight and trying to hydrate.
Right. So the weight that you're fighting at was part of the contract. Like you actually had to fight in that division.
Yes. Oh, wow. Yeah. It was. It was in there what division I'd be in. So yeah. And at that particular time, I didn't have a nutritionist or anything like that helping me. I was kind of just winging it by myself. And because I was so worried about making this weight and hydration, I tried to get my weight as low as I possibly could. So by the time I got there, I'd try and only have a couple of kilos to go, rather than going into a fight week with not a massive weight cut or anything like that, but enough so I could do it comfortably and be able to refuel properly. ton of me. So yeah, it was a whole mental whirlwind doing it like that. It was very, very different. Yeah.
If you could change the way weight cutting is done in general, would you completely scrap it? Would you do it just slightly different? Or would you just leave it exactly how it's kind of done here in Australia?
I think it's a part of the fight game. You should. I don't think it should be taken out, but I think everyone should see a nutritionist or something like that in terms to help. I think because I've been seeing a nutritionist now since my one championship fights. Because when I was there as well, everyone had about 3 or 4 people with them. I think one of them was a strength coach, a striking coach or whatever, a nutritionist, and they all had multiple people with them in terms of helping them with what they needed to do. And I was like, I'm doing something wrong here, that these people have got all these different mentors in different fields doing all these different things for them. And it was just me with a trainer.
Yeah.
And I'm like, when I go back, I need to get on the proper nutrition plan with someone that knows what they're doing. So I know I've been doing that now, I think since my one championship fights, and I've never been in better shape.
Yeah.
And eating more food than I ever have before. My making weights 10 times easier. So.
Right. What's the biggest difference that the nutritionist made that obviously gave you the energy? Like, how are you eating now versus how were you eating then?
Oh, I eat nearly 5,000 calories a day.
What?
In fight camp, yeah.
And you still maintain your weight?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, far out. All right.
Yeah. I think we started because obviously before that I was eating hardly anything in my fight camps because I was like, I need to make this weight. You know, I was eating, but not enough to what I was now. And when I went there, they started me off on, I think it was 1,500 calories a day. And then we slowly just built up to see how my body reacts to certain things. They know the science behind it. I've got no idea. They say, eat this, I eat it. So yeah, we just did that. And it slowly built up to about 4,500 calories a day, maybe 4,000 calories a day or something like that.
That's like the sweet spot for you to...
Yeah, it's perfect. And I'm not sitting as high as I was before when I wasn't eating as much. I'm sitting at a nice weight where I can eat all this food and also make weight easy.
Right.
Yeah.
And obviously you probably notice a big like improvement in your training as well because you got that more energy to put out more in a training session.
Yeah, definitely. You know, more energy to put into a Muay Thai. I lift weights 3 times a week as well, do the strength programs that they have there. So yeah, it's just I think it's just evolving and just improving yourself and adding new things into being a fighter. There's always things you can do differently, all things you can add in there. I've even started doing yoga now. So there's heaps of different things you can do. I think over time you just learn to add things in and it's just evolving as a fighter, I guess.
That's cool, man. That's really good. And it's good that you kind of looking where you're at and like, well, what can I add to this? How can I be better? What can I do? And it's cool that you could look at the other team and see, okay, they're doing this, you know, how can I take that? Yeah, exactly. How can I learn from the enemy, so to speak?
Exactly. Yeah. So, it was just because they're some of the best in the world. So if you're not exactly doing the same as them or as much as them, you're definitely doing something wrong, or you could just be doing a lot more. I think that's what I gathered from going there and seeing all those top level athletes, you know, having all these people around them, you know, a person for each aspect of their training. I thought, I need to get onto that.
Yeah. Right, man. Going back to your one fight, so you said that first one you lost, right? How did you feel? Obviously, there was probably a lot of excitement building up to going on to ONE FC, which is probably like the biggest Muay Thai show at the moment, or probably best in some ways.
Yeah.
So obviously, there was a lot of excitement there. How did you feel after the fight?
I was devastated because, you know, the fight before that, I beat Samapet Fairtex.
Yeah.
That's what got me signed to one championship in the first place. But yeah, I think at the same time, I wasn't too harsh on myself because I'm going against someone that had almost every stadium title you can have, fought absolutely everybody. The first time I went to Thailand, I was 16 or something like that. I watched him fight live at Lumpini and I got a photo with him, and then I ended up fighting him all these years later. So it's a pretty cool story to it. But I suppose being a fighter, when you lose, one, it's your first fight on, you know, the world stage or traveling overseas to fight. You're always going to be devastated. But at the same time, I know it's probably a kick up the backside to almost, all right, you just go back to the drawing board, improve more, take what you've learned, don't feel sorry for yourself and just get on with it. I think that's the mentality you have to have after your loss. You can't dwell on it, oh, I lost, blah, blah, blah. Like, you just got to get on with it, you know?
Was there any kind of lessons you learned from that fight that you started implementing into your training?
Be stronger, because, you know, at that point, for neither of my one championship fights, I was doing strength and conditioning. I was a little bit before, I was doing, I think, CrossFit at the time,
right,
or a little bit of CrossFit or whatever, which I don't really like, but I was doing that for a little while. And then for the one fight, I was like, I've got to make this weight. I can't lift weights because it'll make me gain weight, which now I look at it and I go, you're dumb. That's not what happens. That's not how it works. But that's how my mindset was back then. So
what would you say to maybe any kind of fighters listening to now that obviously coming up and they maybe that at that same point, they're like, I need to get stronger. I'm a bit scared to put on the weight. What would you say to them?
See a strength coach and a nutritionist. There's plenty of fighters out there, and they see, there's a lot of fighters that see different strength coaches and nutritionists. Just go to the one that's closest to you and that you feel comfortable with. Because if you really want to take this seriously and I think have a good longevity in your career, I think, you know, there's so many people that cut weight and it's like, Jesus, they do madness things to themselves. I've done it in the past before I was there. I've done shoots, like starved myself and done all this stuff to try and make all this weight. And then now being in this spot where I've got a nutritionist, I've got a strength coach, and I'm doing things properly, I almost wish I could go back and do it from the start. But at the same time, I don't regret anything. All the lessons I've learned, all the losses I've had, all the lows I've had, I regret none of it.
Yeah. Do you have any, other than the one you've already told me at one, do you have any any other kind of crazy weight cutting stories? Because you probably tried different things.
Oh, that's probably the craziest one I've done, because that was just so alien to me that I was like, even told the fight camp, I was like, how am I going to pay? When I'm like, because usually I fight at 67 and I'm like at the weigh-in and I'm like, I just think like I'm going to be like that. I'm like, I can't pay like that. I mean, I've been doing whatever to get the weight off. There's nothing left in me. How am I going to do this? So I think that's the worst thing, or like not the worst, but the most hectic thing I've done. Other than that, I think it was just not doing things correctly, like not eating enough and you know, cutting food like carbs and things out far too soon, like because I'm worried that my weight's not going to come down and this, that, the other. When really it's actually the opposite. Like I eat more of anything than I ever had before, and my weight just sits nice and even. Like it made no sense to me really, but it works.
It just works, man.
It works. And every combat athlete they have at MH Performance, every athlete that goes there will tell you the exact same.
Is that what you use? MH
yes,
Performance?
MH Performance. That's where I know Mandy personally. She we trained together at Riddlers, and then you know she started that up, and I've just been going there.
Quick shout out to MH Performance.
Yeah, quick shout out to MH. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. So you've been fighting some really big names recently, or even not recently, for the last few years.
Yeah.
What would you say? And obviously Thais, right? What's the biggest difference fighting at that level, or when fighting Thais versus fighting, say, Australians or anyone else? Like, what's the biggest difference that you notice?
I think Thais are just masters at it. You know, I think they've been doing it for that long. It's just nothing to them. They've had hundreds and hundreds of fights. It makes my 43 seem like nothing. You know.
Yeah.
Some of them have probably had more knockouts than I've had fights. So, you know, I think they're just so comfortable with it. It's their national sport. It's their natural thing to do. I think when you get in there as well, which I think I've learned over fighting these people, you can't be intimidated by them. You can't, you know, not be confident within yourself. You can't, you know, overthink it. You just got to go in there and not, like, you may respect them before and after the fight, but you can't give them any respect when you're in there at all. You got to fight them just like that anybody else. Otherwise, they'll get on top. They'll be able to know that. They'll be able to sense it, and they'll just be all over you.
Yeah. I was going to say, how do you, like, knowing that they're that good, how do you just change that state of mind to be like, they're just someone else? You know?
I think you just got to be confident within yourself and in your ability. I think you just got to believe in yourself, you know. Even if you do lose, even if I lose to Thais like that, as long as I give a good fight and I believe in myself and I'm confident, I think that's the bare minimum you should expect from yourself. The rest will come if you deserve to win.
Yeah. And of all the fights you have won, right, which has been the hardest fight that you've won?
Probably the summer pet fight, really, I think. Even though when probably you watch the fight, it's probably like, I think I won almost every round. He might have won one round maybe. But I think it was just, I think I took the fight on maybe a month's notice, 4 or 5 weeks, I think. Could be wrong, could be right. And I was kind of just, like I said before, I just went in there, no pressure, confident in myself I could do something, get a result, and just went in there and just got on with it, just got on with the job. I think he went in there and thought he was going to roll me over out the park. He's probably overconfident. He did an interview before and he said, I don't check kicks, apparently. Checked almost every one of his kicks. But I made the point of going in there and going, you don't think I can check or I don't check? All right, I'll do it. And I think I checked almost every one of his kicks when we fought. So, yeah, I think that was probably the hardest because that was I'd fought Thais before, but I think that was my first leap into the A class Thais or the better Thais,
Yeah, and the confidence that it gave you after obviously fighting someone of that caliber.
Well, it just made me think, you know what, I can mix it with these guys and I can be in there and give them a good fight. Like they can't just come in there and then, just think it'll be an easy fight,
Is there a moment, maybe it was when obviously you're still back at the Predator days when you're training, where you're like, I know it might sound a bit arrogant, but when you're like, man, I'm pretty good at this.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not like, okay, I'm good. Like, I'm good at this.
Yeah.
Like, I need to really take this seriously.
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of always just gone with the flow of it. I've never really, at the start of my career, did I think I'd be here? No. Because it's kind of just all happened, just gradually just happened. I've never really, there's been a couple of times where I've sat down and thought, oh, far out. I've done all these things now. And I've beat these people, but I don't really, I don't really think, oh, I'm really good at this and fucking, I don't really.
I know it can sound a bit arrogant,
I don't really think like that because it's because anyone can do it really if they believe in themselves and they put in the work. Honestly, anybody can do it if they've got the belief in themselves and they just put the work in. Anybody, absolutely anybody can do it. Anybody. So I just put in the work. I believed in myself and I got what I worked for,
You've been obviously quite active. I don't even think there's been a time where you've had a year off or two.
Yeah, no, I think the longest time I haven't fought was when the COVID thing was here.
Right, yeah.
That's the only time where since I started fighting there's been a big break or where I haven't actively been looking for a fight or wanting to have a fight. So I've kind of just gone with it.
Yeah. And in your career so far, has there been any time that and I know it's probably don't want to admit it, but has there ever been a time that you wanted to either give up or stop, and how did you overcome that feeling?
I don't know. It's kind of hard because I don't think I've ever gone, oh, I don't want to do this anymore because as in the Muay Thai sense, because when I'm done fighting, I want to have my own gym. That's that's the dream, and that's why I'm I don't regret any of the losses, the bad experiences I've had, the dumb things I've done in terms of weight cutting, or because these are all lessons that I'll be able to take into opening my own gym, which will end up making that better. So that's why I don't regret anything. And I don't think I've ever been oh, I don't want to do this anymore, because I think, I got Muay Thai's life tattooed across my chest. And I think that's kind of how I live, how I am within Muay Thai, I think sometimes you'll be in a camp and you go, I've had I'm tired now. I want this. I want to fight. And I just want to have a minute. I think with working full time, training, it's kind of every day is kind of just blurred into one. So the fight camps are just one big, just train, eat, work, sleep. It's just like a repeat. And then you get to the weekend, you train Saturday morning. And now I do yoga on the evenings, on a Saturday with some meditation and stuff, and Sunday's the day where I'm all right, I have nothing to do today. It's the one day where I do nothing in fight camp. So
yeah.
But at the same time, I love what I do. I don't I kind of don't want to do anything else. I think it's always been my dream to do Muay Thai and just let it take me wherever it takes me.
do you have like a number of fights that you want to get to? Like, is that obviously
I've already
50's
surpassed.
close.
I've already surpassed what I thought I'd have. So the number's just getting bigger as I go. But 40 wins would be good.
40 wins.
I've had 40 wins. I've had 30 wins now. So 40 wins, I'd be like, all right. And I've given myself an age of 30. I don't want to fight over 30 years old. Right. I think because I've been fighting since I was 15. That's 15 years. Yeah, I'm right. All right. That's probably a time where you've probably done your best work's probably behind you by that point, and especially the amount of time I've been fighting. I think 30's a good, because Roy started fighting when he was young. He's 30 now, and he's like, all right, you know. So I think that's the number I have in my head is 30, and then just going up, just fighting up until then, and just doing whatever, fight whoever, whatever.
It's funny you mentioned that. I had a conversation, Tim Mitchell.
Yeah.
This morning, and he was actually saying 30 is when he felt the best, but I guess he wasn't fighting from such an age and hadn't been doing for 15 years.
So everyone's different, some people start fighting in their mid-20s and then they might be 35, or like, obviously everybody's different. Everybody has to do what's right for themselves. Everyone's different. Some people might be fighting from when they're young and they might be 40 when they stop fighting. But I think for me, 30 could be the age where I'd like assess and think, right, do I want to keep fighting, or have I had enough now? That's the age where I'm like, just sit down and assess where you're at and see where you want to go from here. Because the dream is to have a gym. That's my ultimate dream. I want my own fighters. I want my own fighters to be on the biggest shows. I want all my fighters to win fights. So I'm kind of seeing my fight career as everything I'm winning, experiencing, losing, going through all the high moments and low moments. It'll help me when I have a gym, because I can look at them and go, I've done it all. I've been through it. Yeah. And then they'll trust me more to be able to lead them to where they want to go. So
I've got no doubt as soon as you open a gym, a lot of people are going to want to train you.
Yeah. So that's the dream. That's the dream.
Have you already picked out the name? You ready?
No, I haven't picked out a name. I've got like a little book at home. I write all Muay Thai stuff in, just like, so I can remember. I write down when I fought, who I fought, how it went. I've got it like my whole career mapped out like in this little book. And I haven't got a name, but I've got like how I have things structured, and
like you mean the classes, like how you want to coach it?
how I'd train fighters. I've got like, and that's always changing, because at the same time I've been to Thailand. I've trained at Riddler's and how they train. I've been at the pit and how we train now. So I think it's taking bits of everything of where I've learnt from everywhere and trying to like put it all together. So yeah.
Well, is there anything you think you would do differently from what you're currently doing right now? Like if you're training someone else, first obviously you've got to respect where you train and how they do things.
Of course.
What would you do differently with that fighter?
At the moment, in terms of how I train, I think the base of how I train people would be a traditional Thai session, because I think that's, you do your half an hour clinches, you do your big pad rounds, you do a run, you do, all these things that I do now. I wouldn't do it any differently, really, but I'd really want to focus on lots of technique, lots of drilling, and I'd make fight camp, and out of fight camp it'd be almost just pure technique and upskilling and just technique, like just, all that type of thing. I'd try and make it a little bit like that, I guess.
I get that, man. I get that. All right, look, I actually had so much more that I want to ask you, and I've already got to start closing down 5 minutes before. So, well, is there anything you want to say, I guess, just to wrap it up? Anything you'd like to say to that guy that's starting out, that's, wanting to get into Muay Thai, isn't sure that he's maybe good enough? What would you say to motivate him and to get him to that next step of actually committing to doing it?
Well, you got to believe in yourself. That's like the ultimate thing. You look at any fighter out there, any top-level fighter, they all believe in themselves. There's not one top-level athlete that doesn't believe in himself. So I think that's the base work that you have to start on. Everybody will have like, just because they believe in themselves all the time doesn't mean they'll have a bad training session and they'll be like, that was a shit session today. But if I ever have a shit session, I shut off when I leave the gym. I don't think about it. And the next day when I get there, I'm not going to train like I did yesterday. It's going to be better today. So I think it's almost not feeling sorry for yourself and just getting on with it, because it's a harsh sport. So it's almost like you got to get on with it. You can't feel sorry for yourself. You can't dwell on losses. You can't, you just got to get on with it, and you just got to strive to improve, strive to get better, and strive just to have a real strong mindset. You got to have a strong mindset in this sport. It can be very harsh at times. So,
man, I think that's some really good, really good piece of advice, and I really hope someone that listens to that will take the time to really think about it and not be so fearful, and like you said, believe in themselves, because like you said, without that belief, you're not gonna take any action.
Of course, you'll get nowhere if you don't believe in yourself, especially in this sport, because your opponent will be able to, and the opponent in your opponent's corner, they'll be able to see it straight away, and they'll say he's not believing in himself, go after him.
Have you ever seen someone that you could tell straight away like that they're done mentally?
I think after I've kicked someone, I can look and I go, yeah, all right, I've got you now. Like you might be before, you're like, yeah, I'm going to knock him out, and then I hit him, and they're like, all right.
Yeah.
So maybe at that point, yeah.
Awesome, man. Anyone that's wanting to follow you on your socials, like where can they find you?
Obviously have an Instagram. I think if you just search up Tyler Hardcastle, it should come up. I think I've got a Facebook page as well, but I'm not overly active on social media. I don't really.
You're not into.
I don't really like all these videos people make, and yeah, I don't.
You're doing your fans a disservice, man.
I know. It's just I've never really been like that. Like social media is a very big thing now on the fight scene, and it has really taken people doing all these fucking Instagram edits of their fights, and I don't even know how they do it.
Yeah,
like I've tried. I think a couple of times I've gone, right, I'm going to try and do this a bit more. I think it's lasted a day, and I've gone, no, fuck this.
Yeah,
just because I don't know. I just guess I'm just not like that in terms of I'll be active after a fight and post the pictures, and then I might disappear for a bit, and then someone will tag me in something and I'll share it, but that's about all I've ever really done on the old Instagram.
Yeah, man, I guess you're too busy living life and doing the things you want to do rather
too busy
than
training and doing it. When I'm at the gym, the last thing I'm thinking about is asking someone to grab a phone and record me hitting pads or whatever, because most of the time it probably won't look that pretty because I'm usually fucked.
I hear you there, man. Yeah. It has been
Thank you very much.
An absolute pleasure, man.
You too.
I would be keen for a part 2 at some point.
Of course, yeah whenever.
Get into some of the more media questions that I had planned. But man, we'll go there, and thank you so much for coming down.
Cool, thank you very much.